we have similar personality in India as well, isn't it? Like Gandhiji and Nelson Mandela, they are similar in many ways because of their faith, their belief, their principles, and then they both had struggled to get freedom. They both had raised their voice against inhumanity, against injustice, against cruelty. They are always fought for justice, for peace, for freedom. So that's how they are similar. Similarly, I don't know whether in social studies you read or not, but a civil rights activist, Martin Luther King of America, he also got inspiration from Gandhiji, and he had also fought to get the rights for blacks in America in a non-violent way. Gandhiji had always talked about non-violent means of action, right? And these people, they had been influenced by him because of Gandhiji's faith in non-violence, right?
Yes,
However it is today, we find because of their political reason, some people defame Gandhiji, they abuse him, which is very, very sad, very unfortunate, because he is the father of the nation. And who does ever speak in a disrespectful manner about his father? So it's very sad. But anyway, we have a high respect for him because he had contributed a lot to the freedom of India. Yes. So till yesterday, we just discussed about Nelson Mandela, who Nelson Mandela was. The first Black president of South Africa, the president of African National Congress, the one who had contributed a lot for the rights of blacks, because South Africa had been following apartheid, and Nelson Mandela had raised his voice against it, for which around 30 years he had to spend in prison. While he was in prison, he had been humiliated and harassed. He had been ill-treated, but he did not give up hope, and he did not give up his determination and the courage. And he continued his fight to get the freedom and the rights for blacks, even while being in the jail. Finally, for the first time in 1994, through a democratic process, the elections were held in South Africa, and Nelson Mandela won the elections with a huge majority. And thus he became the first president that was elected democratically in South Africa. So it was because of his efforts that for the first time, a newly democratically elected non-racial government was going to take place. Non-racial, and he was black. He fought for blacks. But when he became the president of South Africa, he had included whites and blacks together in his government machinery. Why he did this? Because he wanted to give equal rights to all the people of South Africa. See that what it is, if he had fought for the rights of blacks, and if in his government he had included blacks only, not white, then what do you think, that apartheid would have been solved?
No, ma'am.
No, it would have still been apartheid. Earlier, it was against blacks, now it would have been against whites. He had suffered, he had experienced the pain of apartheid. He had experienced the pain and the treatment of racial discrimination. So he never wanted the same thing to happen again in South Africa. So when he took the oath during inauguration ceremony also, he had taken this pledge. Now here is his inauguration speech. Let us see what he says in his inauguration speech. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Try to understand now, each and every line is important in this lesson. Today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer. All of us meaning Africans and all those present there. All those present there, the guests, the international dignitaries, celebrities, the respectable guests. He says that all of them, they have gathered there, and their attendance, their presence there, it glorifies freedom, and it shows that the people have a hope for a newborn liberty. Liberty meaning freedom. Now, newborn liberty, this is metaphor used for liberty, newborn. Newborn is a newborn baby. So the freedom was as new as a newborn baby. So the people who gathered there, that means they hoped that South Africa would get freedom. And that day, with their presence, they have proved, they have confirmed that they all wanted the freedom which was as new as a newborn baby, which was new like a newborn baby. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now you can get a question from this statement. Identify the poetic device. Then you would say it is metaphor. Right? There can be a short question. What does Nelson Mandela mean when he says newborn liberty? You would say he means to say that South Africa has got freedom which was as new as a newborn baby. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster, out of the experience South Africa has experienced. South Africa had experienced that lasted too long, meaning they experienced, the people of South Africa, they experienced for a long time. What? An extraordinary human disaster. What is that human disaster?
Apartheid.
Apartheid, right. That was apartheid. The people of South Africa, they had experienced this human disaster. This has been called extraordinary human disaster. Why it has been called extraordinary human disaster? Because it was the most crucial. It was the worst disaster that had ever happened on the earth. The way the blacks were treated by the whites. He says that the South Africans, they had experienced, they had suffered apartheid for a very long time. Now, after that suffering, there is going to be born a society. There is going to be born a society. A new society is happening, is going to take place in South Africa. What is special about this new society? Of which all humanity will be proud. such a society is going to be set up in South Africa that all the humans on the earth, all the human beings, they would be proud of this society. Why all humanity? Because that society would be meant for all humans, all the citizens of South Africa. Despite the difference in their color, difference in their caste, community, age, race, gender, etc., etc. What does it mean? That this society that would be based on complete equality. Is that clear, this line?
Yes, ma'am.
Each and every line can be given to you for comprehension or for MCQs. So even slightest doubt, you please immediately ask me. Okay? We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take position with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Yes, we who were outlaws, we stands for South Africa. Who were outlaws? South Africa before 1994, before South Africa got freedom from the whites, South Africa was considered an outlaw. Outlaws are the ones who do not follow. Outlaws are the ones who follow bad practices, right? They were considered outlaws because they had been following the policy of apartheid. South Africa at that time was governed by whites. It was being ruled by whites. And whites had been practicing apartheid. So all the countries of the world, majority of the countries of the world, they had disassociated themselves with South Africa. They had broken off their ties, their relations with South Africa, and South Africa was considered an outlaw, right? So South Africa, that was being treated, that was being called as outlaw for long. South Africa, with which no other nation was ready to have relations, have today been given the rare privilege. Privilege is a special right. Here it is opportunity. Today, South Africa, the same South Africa with which the other countries, they never wanted to have any relations. Today, same South Africa has been given an opportunity to host the nations of the world on our own soil. Today, the same country has become the host. The same country has got an opportunity to host the nations of the world in South Africa itself. All those nations who never wanted relations with South Africa, today they have come as their guest. What do you think? What has happened suddenly? That the countries which were against South Africa, today they have come to attend this inauguration and they are their guest. Yes?
Ma'am, because now South Africa were a democratic country and free from whites.
Very good. Because they have got a democratic setup. Now they are not being, their country is not based on racial discrimination. They have risen above this. Is that clear? We thank all our distinguished international guests. Then Nelson Mandela, in his speech, he expressed his gratitude. He expressed his thanks to all the distinguished, respected guests who had come from different countries. for having come to take possession with the people of our country. He had expressed his thanks to all the delegates of those different countries who had come over there, that they had graced this occasion, that they had come, they had attended this occasion with the people of South Africa, of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Now, this is very important. Listen carefully. A common victory for justice. He expressed his thanks to different countries whose delegates had come over there to attend the event, because Nelson Mandela said that they all had a common cause for coming. So, ANC, African National Congress, got elected, got the victory, but it was not the victory of African National Congress. It was not the victory of South Africa only. Why? Because they had fought this fight for justice, to give justice to the blacks of the people of South Africa. If all are given equal rights, then there would be no discrimination, there would be no conflicts, there would be no fights, and of course, there would be peace. And when there is peace, then all the human, they would be equally respected. So human dignity will be maintained. So all these nations, they have the common cause, they have the common purpose, they all believe in justice, peace, and human dignity. Human dignity where all are treated equally, all are respected equally. Right? So this is what he was thankful to them, that they had come over there and they had been sitting with the natives of South Africa because it was a common victory. They also believed in justice, peace, and human dignity. And when new chapter of the history of South Africa was going to start, it was starting with justice, peace, and human dignity for South Africa. I hope this passage is clear to you.
And
Yes,
what
ma'am.
is the meaning of possession?
To take possession, to take possession, to take possession is actually to own. But here it is simply for having come to be seated with the people of South Africa.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? Okay. Yes, girl, everything is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. Nelson Mandela, in his speech, mentioned that, you see that everywhere he does not say I. He does not say I. He says we. Why he says we? Because he is representing South Africa. Right? He is representing the people of South Africa. So when he says we, it means South Africa. He says South Africa has at last achieved their political freedom. Emancipation is freedom. We pledge ourselves. He says that today, the people of South Africa, they should pledge, they should resolve, they should take a resolution, they should promise themselves to liberate, to free all our people, that they all have to work to free the people from the continuing bondage of poverty. Now look here what it is. When he says that we have achieved our political emancipation, political freedom meaning they have got fundamental rights and freedoms. Now they will have their own government. It would not be purely white's government. It would be the government of South Africa, democratically elected government. So this is political freedom, right? But he says that our job is not simply to get political freedom. They have yet to free the people. When he says that we pledge ourselves, in a way, he is trying to motivate the South Africans that they have to rise and they have to fight and they have to free themselves from the continuing existing bondage of poverty. Bondage is slavery of poverty. There was so much poverty in South Africa. So is this political freedom we have got? We have got our own government, democratically elected. But we have yet to strive to fight. We have yet to fight. We have yet to strive to rise ourselves above the poverty. Now you see that, you know that what it is, the countries which have discrimination, racial discrimination, religious discrimination, communal discrimination, such countries, children do not rise, they do not make progress. Pakistan is an example before you. This country is completely based on religion. That's why elected governments, they cannot last for long in that country. Today also you see Imran Khan's government is, we don't know what happens after an hour in Pakistan, right? So this is, and when these countries, they do not progress, there is poverty. The people are deprived of their rights. People do not get the right to education. They do not get freedoms, they suffer, and a lot of discrimination is there. And you just say in 1947, we two neighbors, we got independence, right? And you just compare yourself with Pakistan. What progress India has made, and they are still there. Because their country is based on religion. Is that clear? So this is what he tells his people, that they have to free themselves of the slavery of poverty, deprivation. They were deprived of their rights and freedoms. Now they have got their rights. And whenever they feel their rights are being violated or curtailed, then they have to fight for that. Suffering, they should not allow themselves to suffer now. Gender and other discrimination. Now is the time, a democratically elected government is there, so there should be no gender bias. Gender bias, I hope you understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Girl, do you understand gender bias?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So there should be no gender bias, no gender discrimination. Right? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now these very lines are very, very important. Okay. Never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Yes, never, never and never again. When he is repeating never, why he is repeating never, that suggests that he is so determined, right? He is so determined. Never, never and never again shall it be. He is very confident. He is very sure. He is very much determined that it is not going to happen again, that this beautiful land refers to what?
South Africa.
South Africa. Good. Beautiful land, that this beautiful land, this South Africa, will not experience the oppression of one by another. Oppression is slavery. Oppression is atrocities. Oppression is cruelty. Oppression is humiliation. Oppression is torture. Oppression is ill treatment. What he means to say that he promises to the people of South Africa that in South Africa, there would never be the situation again now when one person is oppressed or enslaved by another, where one person is ill-treated or harassed or humiliated by others. When he says this, he is conveying a message to the people very strongly that in his rule, all the people in South Africa would be treated equally. So each and every citizen of South Africa would live with a dignity, with respect. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Oppression of one by another is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. The human achievement they have got is glorious. What is that human achievement?
Democratic country and free.
Right. Democratically elected non-racial government, that is a human achievement. It is so glorious, so significant that the sun shall never set. The sun shall never set, meaning this South Africa is never going to lose this democratic setup. South Africa is never going to be deprived of. South Africa is never going to devoid of. South Africa is never going to miss, never going to lose this freedom and democratically elected government and democracy that they have got after hard struggle. Clear? Let freedom reign. Let freedom reign. He tells the people, let the freedom prevail. Everyone, freedom should prevail in South Africa. In South Africa, there should be complete freedom. The people should breathe in an air of freedom. And then he blesses Africa. God bless of Africa, that Africa is blessed because Africa had suffered a lot. Africans had suffered a lot. In particular, the blacks had suffered a lot at the hands of white supremacy. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt anywhere?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now these oral comprehension check. Yes. Where did the ceremonies take place?
In Pretoria.
Pretoria, where? Where in Pretoria?
In the amphitheater.
Amphitheater of Pretoria. Okay. Can you say, name any public buildings we discussed yesterday? Rashtrapati Bhavan, Humayun's tomb,
Red Fort.
Qutub Minar, Red Fort, yes. Can you say how 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa? Try to remember, I explained to you.
Ma'am, 10th May is an autumn day in South Africa because on that day, all country, the leaders of all countries came in the ceremony of South Africa, and there is a new new way of a freedom from freedom
Okay.
of white peoples from South Africa.
Okay. Any other? Yes.
No.
What is your interpretation, Gar, about this autumn day, 10th May as an autumn day?
Ma'am, in autumn, like we see that new leaves shed, I think.
Old leaves shed.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Old leaf shed. So the apartheid is shedding and the people of South Africa will now live a democratic life.
Very good. Perfect. Very precise. Good. Okay. So autumn day is, it has been described. There is another reason also. I think you have forgotten, girl, that it was autumn going on in South Africa at that time. Okay. So first thing you would say, it was autumn in South Africa. So he termed it as autumn day. Secondly, as in autumn, the old leaves shed and the new leaves take place. Similarly, apartheid was going and a new democratic setup has taken place in South Africa, right? Anyway, very good attempt by both of you. Okay, at the beginning of his speech, Mandela mentions an extraordinary human disaster. What does he mean by this human disaster?
The practice of apartheid.
You're right, practice of apartheid. What is the glorious human achievement he speaks of at the end?
Democratically elected government.
Right, democratically elected government. What does Mandela thank the international leaders for? Why does he thank them?
For coming in ceremony
Right.
and join them.
Yes. Yes, he thanks the international leaders for their presence, right? For their presence and confirming the common cause of justice, peace, and human dignity, right? What ideas does he set out for the future of South Africa?
Ma'am, removal of poverty and justice, peace and dignity.
Removal of poverty, but not justice. Just think of what you said again. Removal of poverty is correct.
No discrimination.
Right.
And
What else?
inequality.
Removal of inequality, right. Suffering. Let me take you here, children. Right. What did he say? He wanted the people to free themselves of the bondage of poverty. That is what you said, removal of poverty, deprivation, suffering, and any kind of discrimination. Do not say simply gender and others, simply say any kind of discrimination. Or as you said, equality. Yes, that is right. Removal of inequality. Clear? Okay, let us continue here. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers rode in perfect formation over the Union buildings. Now, in his autobiography, he tells you, he says later on, after he gave his speech, then everyone's eyes raised in surprise. Why? Because they were all surprised to see a spectacular, beautiful, and impressive array display of South African jets. South African jets, they are aircrafts, helicopters, and troop carriers. Troop carriers are the vehicles that carry the soldiers. And their sound was roaring in the sky. And these African jets, these aircrafts, helicopters, they had been making a formation while flying past the Union buildings. Have you noticed on Air Force Day or in an air show how the aircrafts, they fly fast and they make formations? I'll just show you the clip. Yes, it was not only, is that clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. He says it was not merely a display of perfection. Pinpoint precision meaning precise. It was not merely a perfect and precise or accurate display. It was not merely an exhibit of military force. It was not merely a show, an air show of the military force. But it was a demonstration, but it was a reflection. It reflected, it suggested military's loyalty to democracy. That democracy had been accepted by military force also. To a new government, that military has also approved and accepted the new democratically elected government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. He said just a few moments before, the highest generals, the commanders of the South African Defence, South African Army, South African Air Force, South African Naval Force, right, and police, all these commanders whose chests were bedecked, meaning decorated with ribbons and medals. You must have seen these commanding officers, how they are wearing their ribbons and medals on their chest, right, which they get because of their remarkable services. From days gone by, from the past, they all saluted Nelson Mandela and pledged their loyalty and promised that they would serve him and the nation with utmost sincerity. It was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. He said, I was not unmindful of the fact, meaning he remembered. He remembered, he was aware that the same commanders, just a few months or a few years before, they would not salute him, but they would come to arrest him. Why do you think that they would come to arrest him at that time?
Ma'am, because at that time there were the government of white peoples.
Right, because it was the white supremacy, it was the whites ruling, and they had been against the activities of Nelson Mandela, who had been the leader of blacks, who had been fighting for the rights of blacks, right? And these commanders, they had to follow the instructions or the directives given by the government, right? Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. This black, red, green, blue, and gold, they are the colors of South African flag. He said finally what he found a chevron of Impala jets. Impala jets are the aircrafts of South African Air Force. Here is the one, can you see the picture?
Yes, ma'am.
Here is the picture, right? So what it is, then finally these Impala jets came in a number, emitting behind themselves the smoke of these very colors of South African flag. Now you must be thinking, what is chevron? Chevron is making a formation, V kind of formation. I cannot show you the chevron of Impala jets, but yes, I can definitely show you this. Yes, I can show you Indian Air Force.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
right? So today we conclude here. The rest we shall take up next week. If any problem anywhere, you can ask me right now. Any
No,
doubt?
ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Sure?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine.